Welcome to Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Little Nightmares 3. I played it on the PS5. It's also available on the Xbox Series X, Xbox One, PC, Nintendo Switch, Nintendo Switch 2, and yeah, that's it. In Little Nightmares 3, you play as Lo and Alone, who I affectionately named Crowboy and Goggle Girl, because, well, he has a crow mask and she wears goggles. Super creative. Okay, I just looked it up. Technically, it's a raven mask, but whatever. So Lo, who I will continue to call Crowboy, is basically trying to escape along with Alone. And really, the story, as you find out through the game as it goes on, through what few like cinematics there are, cutscenes, whatever you want to call them, it's really focused on him and his escape, and really Alone is just trying to help him. And just like the previous Little Nightmares games, you go through certain areas, and the story is never directly told to you. It's not really in your face. It's very atmospheric storytelling, environmental storytelling. Although I will say that Little Nightmares 3 is the most direct out of all of them. And quite frankly, it was fine. It didn't pull me in. I wasn't as intrigued. I felt like calling it barely adequate might be generous. But let's get on to the audio, and the first thing I'm going to say is there's no real voiceover work except for like the occasional hey, hey from your characters when you're trying to call them over, especially if you're playing with AI, which is what I did, I'll say that now. As for the music was okay. I don't think it necessarily hit the way I would have liked it to, and the sound effects were good. I do think the sound effects were probably the best part, but it did lack a certain creepiness in the sound effect department. The sound effects for the environments were well done enough, and they were creepy for some things, but not creepy in the overall sense, which, you know, is kind of disappointing for a horror game. Which will lead me into the gameplay mechanics and whatnot, and this is a horror game. It's a side-scrolling, semi-isometric horror game. You are basically running around this world. It's not always side-scrolling, that's why I'm like, it's kind of hard to put that in there, but a lot of it is from left to right or right to left, just depending on where you're going. There is a bit of 3D to it at times, and overall you're basically just trying to get to the end of each area, solve some puzzles along the way, do some sneaking, maybe some running away from the enemies. And that's one thing I'm going to hit on right away is in the previous two games, when you're doing the run away from the enemy thing and you would escape, it felt like it was by the skin of your teeth. Like, you were barely making it, whereas in this, you make it with ease pretty much every single time. You either die or you make it with ease. There's no in between. They don't do a good job building the same level of tension that was in the last two, and that does kind of boil down to theirs being done by new devs. I was also kind of disappointed with how you dealt with the enemies. Just in general, they did do what Little Nightmares 2 did, where they introduced some more combat at times. Goggle Girl has a wrench that she can whack things with, and Crowboy has a bow and arrow. And I'm gonna say right away, I was controlling Goggle Girl, and Crowboy, the AI for Crowboy, I didn't play co-op like I said, is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. It's dumb as shit. It is straight up dumb as shit. Not just in the combat, but in general, the AI controlling your companion sucks, and it does drag down the experience. First example was the first time we did combat. It was these flying beetle things. Didn't find them particularly spooky. And Crowboy had to shoot them, and then I had to whack them with my wrench while they were on the ground. The problem is, Crowboy would literally stand under one of them, shoot it, and it would fall and kill him. And he did this repeatedly. I had to try and like run over and kind of shove him, which you can't do as easily as you'd like, out of the way so it wouldn't fall on him, which led to him shooting one that directly fell on me, killing me, and then forcing us to restart again. And this happened again and again and again and again. It actually happened enough times where I was about to reach out to a friend and be like, hey, I need you to buy this game just so you can help me get through this one fucking section. But that wasn't the only time. There was another time where he had a fuse and I couldn't take the fuse from him, but he could not, absolutely could not throw it through this window in order for us to progress, which led to a truly obnoxious glitch, which I will get into later. But repeatedly, he just couldn't throw it over there, and I had no way of taking it from him and just doing it. It was awful. But then there were other times where he just wouldn't follow me places that I needed him to. In general, the AI for your companion sucks. Like, truly sucks to the infuriating point. To get back to the gameplay overall, it's fairly simplistic. It's run around, find a lever to pull, find an object to plug in, find a key, etc. There are some collectibles, but one thing that truly disappointed me was in all the previous games, you dealt with these kind of adult monstrosity things, and you would end up having to kill them. And it was generally something that was kind of gruesome and disturbing, and it was a very visceral experience, generally speaking. And that added to the gameplay, and that wasn't here this time around. Not gameplay, but storytelling, I should say. That gameplay element led to the storytelling. And while I do think the gameplay worked pretty well, and there were some things that worked in a good contextual sense, like if you weren't directly in front of something, but you had to interact with it and you just pressed R2, your character would kind of position themselves to do it, which was nice. So that worked well and better than in some of the previous games, but overall, I don't think they did anything that really revolutionized the experience or made it unique to the new devs. But at the same time, there are things that they just did so much worse. Let's get into the controls, and overall, I think the controls worked well. I didn't really have any issues with getting my character to do what I needed them to do when I needed them to, so that's a good thing. Now let's get into the graphics and visuals, and the first thing I'm going to say is I'm going to praise this game for the animations of your characters. I think those are really well done. Like when they're running up ramps, stairs, climbing ladders, all of it matches up really well. When they're jumping, climbing, just all of those little details in gameplay I thought were extremely well done. I didn't really care that much about their character designs. I think they were okay. The one thing that I was very 50-50 on, and it really took away from the experience as a whole, were kind of the boss overarching enemies of each chapter. In the first chapter, it's this giant baby monster doll thing. And I mean giant, like city destroying giant. And it just wasn't creepy, and it just didn't do anything to like bring me into this creepy experience and make me feel like, oh no, which that kind of set a poor precedent. And then I went into the second and third, and I will say the overall boss enemy thing there was creepier. But like in the second level, the design of the level itself, like they didn't do anything to build a creepy world there. It wasn't until the third one where I was like, oh, this is actually a creepy place and a creepy boss. Fourth chapter, I didn't find the place that creepy, and I didn't find the boss creepy either. And I think one thing that they run into in this game is they mistook the idea of these much larger adult monster things, and they mistook that idea as, oh, bigger, scarier. So they made some of these enemies just straight up giants, and that wasn't scary, rather than what worked in the first two games, which were these larger, overly exaggerated, almost mutated, creepy, gross, their proportions were completely messed up bosses, or whatever you want to call them, but they were always like these weird, disturbing adult creatures, and they really only got that with two of them. But as I also briefly touched on, I think the world itself just wasn't as well done. None of the areas you go to, and they are each different, none of them really creeped me out except for the third one. It had some good creepy stuff, and it did have some disturbing grotesqueries, which were definitely in the first games. Like, being disturbing is very much what was in the first games. But this just didn't nail it, and it didn't build a creepy atmosphere. And the first level, going into that, by the time I was done with it, I really was far less interested than I should have been. They didn't do enough to pull me in, and they didn't build a spooky atmosphere. They didn't have a spooky enemy. It was just really disappointing, and it wasn't very disturbing and twisted like the previous games. They just really missed it there, and it set the tone for the rest of the game for me. And when your game is predominantly environmental storytelling and so on, and you're not hitting that, that's a problem. Now, I mentioned issues I had with the AI companion that led me to a horrible glitch. There was the glitchiness of him not being able to throw the item through the window, the fuse, which led me to restart from that checkpoint, and hopefully it would fix that issue. Yeah, the item I needed, which I don't remember what the hell it was called, I just referred to it as the second sight doll, that just fully vanished, and so did the fuse, and without it, I could not proceed. Without either of those items, I could not proceed. And this is apparently a known glitch. I had to restart the chapter. Now, admittedly, I didn't lose a ton, but the fact that the AI sucks so badly that I was having to restart a checkpoint, problem. The fact that it then led to a glitch that made me restart the game and then restart that chapter, these are just things that I tried, and I found out with some Googling that restarting the chapter is the only way to unfuck this situation. Like, putting that all together, just, oh my god, why? What the fuck? It was incredibly infuriating, and him not being able to throw the thing through the window again made me think I'm about to have to call my friend and have them buy this game just to get me through this one part. I obviously eventually got through it, I beat the game, but that was, yeah, just not okay. So let's get into the wrap up. The first thing I'm going to say is, if you do decide to play this co-op with a friend because the AI sucks. It can fully fuck off. Secondly, I just don't think this worked. Just plain and simple. I don't think they nailed the vibe. I don't think they did anything from the storytelling, the world building, the world design, the enemy design, any of that as well as in the previous games. There were some disturbing things, but they weren't explained. They weren't shown to you in the way that they kind of give you an explanation, in the way that they were that made them even more disturbing in the previous games. Just at the end of the day, none of this felt as well done except for the gameplay and, well, parts of the gameplay and the animations as the previous games. And at $40, oh my god, absolutely not. And then they kind of rub it in your face if you're in the chapter select screen that there's DLC coming that you have to pay extra money for when this really doesn't feel like a full game to begin with. So as you can tell by my reactions, you can probably guess I don't recommend this, which I hate to say because I do love a lot of things that Supermassive have done, and I have enjoyed, you know, the Little Nightmares series previously, but wow, this was just a miss. Such a miss. I don't recommend it. Okay, so in the comments down below, why don't you tell me what's a horror game you were super hyped for and then you just kind of ran into and was like, ooh, this is crap. This is a full miss. And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share and subscribe. Have a good one.